Hi, coming to you from a remote location in the Appalachian Mountains. I'm Manfred Brusco. I've recently been doing some digging and some listening. I was listening to Candace Owens and I was listening to Tucker Carlson, and what Candace Owens made me angry. I've been listening to Candace Owens for some time, and a lot of things she says make sense. And lately it's been sounding like she's becoming a Jew hater, anti-Semitic, the thing that everyone's throwing around now. Let's make new laws to make it a crime to talk bad about Israel, or to talk bad about Jewish people, whoever those Jewish people may be. So I started doing some digging, and I started putting some things together that I knew in the past. I didn't think about it and add up until not too long ago. I kept debating making this video because I'm not a bigot and I don't like to be seen as a bigot, but this has to be done because there are some people that I may be able to convince to start looking into things. I'm going to start with a little bit of history, and then we're going to get into what I'm actually talking about. So you got to follow the history before you turn me off. Or turn me off if you want to, but I have to make this video to clear my conscience. Let's start with November 2nd, 1917, the Balfour Declaration. Lord Balfour is a member of Parliament, or at the time, during 1917, I think he was. He was also he's a lord, obviously. He was sent a letter to the Rothschilds, or the Rothschilds, who are the banking clan of the entire planet. They own a lot of stuff, just put it that way. And they still do. The family still owns a lot of stuff, even past 1917, and I won't get into that. But what I do want to say is that there was a declaration that Israel should have their own home state, their own place where they should live. They shouldn't be subjected to pogroms or ethnic cleansing anymore. They should be given their home state. Now, this is before World War II, and it didn't go over well. People didn't really put too much stock in it. At the time, during World War I, Great Britain had control of Jordan. They called it Transjordan. They had control of what they called Palestine, because that's what the Romans called it. Last time the Romans had control of the Levant, and they had control of Lebanon, and basically the place where Moab is, Gaza, the place where Israel is now. England had control of it because they defeated the Ottoman Turks, and the Ottoman Turks were broken up as a sultanate, and so England had control of it. So the Rothschilds intimated to the British government that they would like Israel to have a home state. And you have to know about the Rothschilds because they are what we call Ashkenazi Jews, which I'll get into that in a minute. But it all started with the 1917 Balfour Agreement. Now, this wasn't an act of God. This was an act of a banking family, right? You got to think behind this. The Rothschilds have, I guess, since the Civil War, have, even before that, have profited from every war because they sell weapons to both sides, or basically they finance the weapons sale on both sides. They finance both sides of every war since, I don't know, even pre-Napoleon times, they would finance everything. So they've gotten massively rich, and what they want is to have Israel be a state. Now, why is that? We'll go into that later. But now I'm going to talk about these people that they call Ashkenazi Jews. What are Ashkenazi Jews? I've never heard of them. They didn't actually exist until well after Israel was dissolved as a state the second time. So let's talk about Ashkenazi Jews. What are Ashkenazi Jews? You're going to have to go way back with me on this one because this is a very long and sordid history. And before I go into Ashkenazi Jews, there's another document called the Protocols of Zion. There's 24 protocols that this family of Ashkenazi Jews live by. But the Protocols of Zion aren't actually Zion, like God's mountain is Zion in Israel. They named it that to hide their true identity. The Protocols of Zion, you've probably seen them if you ever heard about the Georgia Guidestones. Very similar language to the Protocols of Zion are on the Georgia Guidestones. Very similar language is in UN Agenda 2035, It was on the Georgia Guidestones and also on Protocols of Zion. This is an evil document. It talks about diminishing the world's population, and the Protocols of Zion sparked what we call the Zionist movement. The masses think that the Zionist movement is to have a home state for Israel, and that Israel will be perfectly happy and left alone, and that we'll be in harmony with God, and everything will be perfect, and we won't have any war anymore because Israel has a state. They won't be persecuted anymore. But over the past 100 years, you know that's not true because Israel has always been persecuted. Now the thing is, what is Israel? Then that's the other thing. So I'm going to go back in time to what I believe are the Ashkenazi Jews. I may be wrong, but there is something definitely going on with Israel that we should not be a part of. Now, I'm not talking about Jews, people who claim to be Jewish, or people who are actually Jewish, or people who, by the way, Jewish is a version for the word Judah, the tribe of Judah. But the people who are Jewish are not from the tribe of Judah. I mean, it's basically encompassing all the 12 tribes that were lost, and the tribe of Judah was the leader of the tribes because they still stayed in Israel the longest, and they actually came back when the Persians allowed them to come back to their homeland. But I'm talking about a part of the tribe of Israel that has taken the moniker of Ashkenazi Jews. Give me a second, I'll try to recall what I've been researching. Now let me show you some pictures here. From what I understand at this point, as the tribes of Israel were cast out of Levant by Assyria, the leadership of the tribes were exiled to separate parts of the empire. They never usually exiled farmers and shepherds. They needed them to keep producing food. So there never has stopped being an Israeli presence in the Levant, except when they were in bondage in Egypt. Previous to the supposed breakup of the 10 northern tribes, 722 BC, some of the tribes made their way by sea to Greece, Spain, Ireland, and England. The tribe of Dan were adept at sea travel, as well as Naphtali. They were trying to find a land to conquer because the Assyrians were inevitably going to wipe them out. Some of the leadership parts of the tribes of Naphtali, Asher, and Dan migrated out of Assyria and into northeastern Turkey. That's area of Turkey, the family ancestry land of Ashkenaz, who was a grandson of Japheth, the great-grandson of Noah. Ashkenaz family was given these parts of the northeastern Turkey. The three tribes, mostly the princes of the three tribes, kept at their practice of sacrificing children to Baal and Molech, cannibalism and sexual atrocities on children, and much more sexual abuse to non-children. By the way, this was the behavior that got Israel ejected from the Levant, got Israel ejected from the Promised Land. This behavior was not acceptable by Abba, by the creator of the universe. So that was well deserved that the 10 tribes were knocked out. But the thing is, the 10 tribes didn't disappear. People think that they disappeared. There's several diasporas. There's a diaspora before 722. There's a diaspora at 722, and there's a diaspora of the Romans when they destroyed Jerusalem in 70 AD. The diaspora just means it's spreading out. So the tribes went to different places, but the world is not this infinitely huge place. Even back then, the world was finite, and the peoples of Israel went all over the place. They didn't stay in Israel. A lot of archaeologists and a lot of historians tend to block people into a certain geographic area when that geographic area is inevitably very small, because it only takes a day or two to walk out of Israel into Syria or Jordan or Egypt. It's not that hard to walk through Israel. So the fact that they're keeping them confined to that little space between the Euphrates and the Nile, this is not even bigger than the state of the United States or a province in Russia or whatever, or state in Russia. It's very small. So to think that they just stayed there was really stupid. They've spread out. The Ashkenaz family was given these parts of northeastern Turkey. The tribes of Israel, 3 of the leaderships of the tribes went there, but they continued doing their practices. Ashkenaz kicked them out because they were more evil than the Ashkenaz. The Ashkenaz, believe it or not, were Gentiles, a Goyim nation that kicked out people who were supposedly from the Promised Land, God's chosen people, but they were more evil than the people who weren't God's chosen people, people who are not God's chosen people, the Goyim, were just people that didn't understand how things worked yet because they were confused. And the nation of Israel was supposed to teach the world about Abba's ways, about the Creator's ways, and they failed in that. Not only did they fail in that, they actually did teach the Goyim worse things than the Goyim already knew and already did. I mean, they made it worse. Okay, so when they left the leadership, wherever they went to, they took their ways with them. They became known as Druids and witches. This tribe's leadership had officially sold out to Satan, also known as Pan, Zeus, Lucifer. By the way, Lucifer is a translation error from Isaiah that everybody gets wrong. And Baal, obviously Baal. He seems to like the name Lucifer, bringer of light, and Latin is what it means. These people are mainly authors of paganism as started by Nimrod, authors of confusion, authors of good and evil together, which is confusion. And they are proud to trace their lineage to Cain and Havel's, or Abel's, twin sister. Back to where I was getting to. The Ashkenaz ejected these people. Even among Gentiles, evil is still evil. They then left the Caucasus Mountains. This is where you get the people type called Caucasian. That's right, Naphtali, Asher, and Dan are mostly white people. You may have known them as the Scythians and later the Khazars. Khazar is a variation of Caesar as well as Kaiser. These people never change, even though they do change their name slightly. They called themselves Ashkenazi because their modus operandi for the past thousands of years is taking the names of their enemies and acting like their enemies when they get defeated by them. That's why they can infiltrate and take over. That's how they do it. If they get beat by somebody, they just infiltrate and take over, much like the FBI does now. When there's a good movement, somebody gets in there, causes violence, and breaks up the movement. That is why we are now talking about the mantle of Jew. These were the Jews that everyone has said evil things about throughout history, and rightly so. They have used this to torture their brother Judah by making the rest of the world think they are the one and the same. Judah's southern kingdom prevailed over the 10 northern tribes because they were not as evil. This created jealousy, and when the Khazars declared themselves to be Jewish and Ashkenazi, they were spitting in the face of Japheth's grandkid and their brother Judah at the same time. Isn't it an irony that a group of Jews is named after a grandson of a non-Semite? Just think about that. In the Bible, it mentions for fear of the Jews. John 7:1, John 7:13, John 9:22, and John 20:19. I always wondered about that. I always wondered about fear of the Jews. I mean, aren't the guys sitting in the Last Supper the Jews? Aren't the guys trying to avoid the Jews and Jerusalem Jews? No, Yeshua was the tribe of Judah. And several of the disciples were of other tribes, but they were all believing in Messiah. So the ones they labeled Jews, I believe, were the Ashkenazi come back to the Holy Land to infiltrate and take over, which they did if you follow the story of the Maccabees. Now, you might say, well, the Maccabees were good guys. Yes. But then after a while, guess what the Ashkenazis do? Like, I should say the tribe of Naphtali, Dan, and Asher do. They infiltrate. They become like you think they're one of your group. And then they start slowly changing things. And then eventually, you end up with priests that are appointed by Roman emperors, and you end up with leaders that are appointed by Roman emperors, who, by the way, are also infiltrated with those same three tribes. So right now, Europe, in the time of the Roman Empire, by the time Yeshua gets there, Europe is totally infested with those three tribes and their ways. And the same thing with later on into the Catholic Church. They've been infested in various ways throughout history. Not that the Catholic Church was founded on great principles. It was founded by Simon the Magician, not Simon Peter. But that's another story. Let's get back to what we're doing after the Maccabees. So the Maccabees take over Israel, get it back from the Greeks, who are actually same tribes, the Akkadian Empire and the Greeks. So how did the Maccabees end up getting distorted and changed and infiltrated? Well, think about it. Sex, marriage, blackmail, intrigue. So eventually the Hasmoneans became Roman, the Hasmoneans became Greek. So they're a mixture of Greek Jews or Greek Israelites, which you'd call Hellenistic Jews, And then the Romans were also infiltrated by this people group. And so they would send people down to help the new state of Israel since they became friends. And the friends infiltrated and took over. And eventually you ended up with Roman legions in the area controlling the Israeli people. I'll call them Israeli people because I don't want you to get confused with the word Jew, which seems to be in debate here. The Maccabees won their freedom but lost it again to intrigue, sex, and blackmail. The priests in Israel weren't all Levites. Some were appointed for political gain. The Sanhedrin was full of these Jews. The common archaeologist's view of the world is so narrow. The world has had interconnected political systems, royal systems, and technology and trade. We are led to mistakenly believe that the previous to Industrial Revolution, the world tribes stayed out of contact with each other. I could go on for hours about these three tribes, leadership, and what evil they have wrought, even into the realm that you would believe to be science fiction and fantasy. Now I want to talk about the Jewish mafia. Now, in America, you had the Italians come over and they had a mafia. You had the Irish come over, they had a mafia. And probably the Polish mafia, you probably got Albanian mafia, you probably got Russian mafia. You also had the Jewish mafia. Now the Jewish mafia lasted for a while. They did the drug trade, they did the prohibition was like their best thing. Bugsy Siegel, he was Jewish mafia. The thing about the Jewish mafia is that they were still going during the time of Kennedy. Now some people think that the Jewish mafia put the hit on Kennedy, but that is not true. Well, to an extent. What I learned from about the Jewish mafia is that they were working with the state of Israel before Israel even became a state. They were harassing British. They were selling weapons to Israeli insurgents, and they were killing British soldiers, and they were causing all sorts of mayhem until finally the British just got fed up with it, and they left it. They said, we're just going to let this territory rule itself. 1948, that's when Israel said, we declare we are the state of Israel. And that's when the war began between the Arabs and the Israelis the first time, the so-called State of Israel. By the way, the State of Israel that was not, people weren't called by God to come to Israel. They weren't called by Abba. They weren't called by Yahweh to come to Israel. In fact, if you say the word Yahweh in Israel, you could get attacked by a bunch of Hasidic Jews because that name is supposed to be unspeakable. But since it's mentioned about 4,000 times in the Bible, I'm thinking he wanted it to be mentioned. The Jewish mafia had a hand in installing Israel and in harassing the British. The Jewish mafia also were raising funds for Israel via different corrupt things. It's what the mafia does. The funny thing is, not the funny thing, but during the Kennedy assassination, the CIA had collected a bunch of documents. Those documents were just released by President Trump not too long ago. There's about 85,000 pages. There's a document.
JFK Assassination Files released in 2025, CO 234-30. Top of the page says CD87.
And it has a conversation between a insurgent in Cuba, because at the time we were trying to overthrow Castro. They wanted another little war to go on. But before Castro controlled Cuba, the Ashkenazi Jews controlled Cuba and used it for gambling and all sorts of sex trafficking and everything else. So the people of Cuba were pissed off, and rightly so. But then the communists gave them like, hey, we're the communists. We give you an alternative viewpoint. You guys can use us. Maybe not the best method of controlling or of governing, but it beats all out corruption and graft and murder and killing and everything like that. Let me continue. Mossad started working with the Jewish mafia. Mossad started infiltrating all over the place. Mossad is what you call in Hebrew the Institute. It's the equivalent of the CIA, and it's just as nasty and just as evil as the CIA. And I'm saying that as an American citizen, our CIA is evil, needs to be dismantled, taken apart, and rebuilt. And all the ex-Nazis need to be removed from the CIA, or Nazi sympathizers. Eugenics and all that other crap, all these people, these Satanists, they've infiltrated our highest areas of government. Okay, there you go, conspiracy theory. But let me tell you stuff about Israel. Somebody from a CIA informant or whatever was talking to the insurgents in Cuba, And they said, well, we don't have to worry about American money anymore because we're getting backed by the Jews now. And as soon as they take care of Kennedy, we'll get their money. And that was a document that the Warren Commission kept from everybody because they didn't want people having anti-Semitic hysteria. What we need is anti-Israel. The Israeli government that's there now is we need to stop supporting this evil regime. And let me tell you, there's a couple other reasons why I believe that the regime is evil, just like our government is evil, the United States government. I'm not sure, but I think that this family, because they're in mafia, whatever you want to call them, the cabal, the Illuminati, whatever, has infiltrated every area of every government in some way or form. And there's internal battles going on every day inside every government. The whole thing comes back to they want Satan to sit on the throne in Jerusalem. Now, you may not believe in God, you may not believe in the creator of the universe, you may not believe in Satan, but these people do. Their main goal is to get Satan sitting on the throne of Jerusalem, in control of the entire world, the new world order, protocols of Zion, Georgia Guidestones, Agenda 2035. They want to get Satan in control of the whole planet, or his son. So let's move on from Kennedy. Now, that was saying that the Jews are going to take care of Kennedy, meaning either the Jewish mafia or the Mossad was going to take care of Kennedy. By the way, the guy who killed Lee Harvey Oswald, you hear his name is Jack Ruby. He's actually Jewish mafia, and his real name is Yaakov Rubinstein. Go figure, huh? Yaakov Rubinstein killed Oswald. Now, why did he kill Oswald? Maybe because of the grassy knoll, the second shooter. Oswald didn't know what the heck was going on. Oswald was a patsy. Oswald wasn't really the guy who killed Kennedy. There's no way he could have made that shot. It had to be really up close. Anyway, the Kennedy documents are released. You can look at one if you want to and see what you make of it. On May 18th, 1963, John F. Kennedy wrote a letter to Ben-Gurion asking him about the nuclear project they had in Dimona. He said, do you or are you creating nuclear weapons? And we need to have inspectors go there. Will you allow inspectors to go to Dimona? And Ben-Gurion, instead of answering Kennedy's letter, he resigned. Ben-Gurion resigned from the Israeli prime ministership. Eshkol was the next guy to take his place. Kennedy again wrote a letter prior to November 1963 asking him the same question that he asked Ben-Gurion. Eshkol did not answer, and in November, Kennedy was murdered. Now, here's the thing about Israel. It's not official that they have nuclear weapons, but every one of our representatives like Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, they said, oh yeah, Israel's got nukes. They got lots of nukes. Are you kidding? They got plenty of nukes. You know, they've always said it off the record, but it is true that Israel has nukes. Now, there's a intelligence brief. I don't know where it came from. I don't know the accuracy of it, but I believe it. Israel has the Samson protocol, or the Samson agenda. If Israel is to get wiped out, there are nuclear bombs placed in several European capital cities that will destroy those European capital cities and other European cities if Israel is removed. Israel seems to be the pinpoint for the Rothschilds to start World War III, or whoever's working with the Rothschilds. They're going to make lots of money. They're going to diminish the population like they want to in the Protocols of Zion. And they'll get everything they want because they've got bunkers, they've got lots of food, they've got a whole economy underground. So they can come back out, clean the land, and all of us will be dead, and they'll just get to take back over. And there'll be a lot less people for them to worry about, us useless eaters. That's the whole theory. It's called the Samson Protocol, or the Samson whatever. But you remember Samson was tied up, he was blind, and he asked God to grant him just enough power to take out these Philistines. So he poured on the two pillars, and like 3,000 Philistines died at one time. Israel, if it's going down, is taking everybody else with it. Now, does this sound like a creator-fearing country? Do they fear Yahweh? Does it sound like it? Does this Mossad organization sound like it? No. There's some other things about Mossad you need to know. Ghislaine Maxwell, she's the one that was working with Epstein, that were running a blackmail ring where they had little girls and little boys to have sex with politicians and celebrities on Epstein Island, and there was a list of people that went on the airplane, not a list of the people that went on the submarine, by the way. Ghislaine Maxwell is a submarine pilot. Apparently there's a license for that. There's a license for submarine pilots, and she's got one. So she would take people to the island without anybody knowing about it, people or victims. And the victims are speaking out. You can listen to what the victims say. You can believe them or not believe them. I choose to believe them. I choose to believe that these people think that they're above the law and they can do whatever they want. And the center of it is Mossad. Mossad is the center of this blackmail operation. And this Mossad is working with the CIA. Mafia leaders and drug lords are all infiltrated by the CIA and the Mossad. They don't even control themselves anymore. That's something else I read from Kathy O'Brien's book about MKUltra, which is another conspiracy theory. And the thing is, it's a conspiracy theory, but it's true. And if you just did a little bit of research, you would start to have a questioning attitude. So I'm asking you people with an open mind or who have a very good researching capability to look this stuff up, because the other things I'm going to tell you and coming up are actual things. Like Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison for working with Epstein for underage children, for molesting underage children. She's in prison. You know that, right? Her father was Robert Maxwell. Robert Maxwell was a Mossad asset. You can look this up. Well, what is an asset? Well, if you watched Born Identity or anything like that, an asset, or Reds, an asset is someone who is an assassin, right? So Robert Maxwell was an assassin for Mossad. Now, Mossad doesn't care to kill allies. They'll kill people who are against Israel or people who are going to stop Israel from doing what they want. Mossad is for Mossad, and they are an evil organization, as I will show you that some other people have investigated this stuff, and you're not going to believe it. You're just going to have to, it's going to have to sink in. Ghislaine Maxwell is the daughter of a Mossad assassin. What are the ties of Ghislaine Maxwell to Mossad? Obviously, she's got ties to Israel because her dad was an assassin. And Epstein supposedly was working for the Israeli government as well. And that's what Candace Owens is trying to get to. And Israel is saying, yeah, you're an anti-Semite. You hate Israel. You hate Jewish people. Let's stop with the bullshit. Let's just get through that, right? We don't hate anybody. I don't like people who commit crimes against children. I don't like people who kill my people. I don't like the state of New York, but I don't like people getting murdered in New York because of some agenda that some satanic people have in their pocket. I don't I don't subscribe to that. If you call yourself Jew, or if you call yourself Ashkenazi, or if you call yourself a follower of Muhammad, if you're murdering innocent people, I don't like you, right? It doesn't matter what your skin color. It doesn't matter what your accent. It doesn't matter what your social upbringing. I don't care. If you murder innocent people, I don't like you. End of story. The World Trade Center was demolished by Mossad with George Bush's knowledge and his acceptance. 3,000 people were murdered by the state of Israel in the United States. Maybe even some of those people were Jewish. They will kill their own people to support their goals. And that's how evil they are. I wouldn't want to work for an organization that would kill its own people. Let's talk about 1967 and Lyndon Johnson. 1967, the Six-Day War. During the Six-Day War, we had an intelligence ship off the coast of Israel gathering intelligence. Now, they were gathering intelligence for Israel, right? They were monitoring radio communications in Russian and in Arabic, and they were relaying that back to the United States government. It was one of our most sophisticated electronic spy ships. It looked like it was a World War II cargo vessel, but it had so many sophisticated pieces of equipment on it. Supposedly, one of the guys on the ship, the damage control technician, said they could send a message, bounce it off the moon, and have it back to the United States from the Mediterranean to Washington in 3 seconds. Now, that's pretty amazing. I don't know what kind of technology does that, but that's pretty amazing. This guy, Phil Turney, talked about his ordeal when the Israeli Air Force and the Israeli Navy attacked the USS Liberty and tried to sink it. They shot out the radio antennas first. One of the radio men was able to put one of the radio antennas back and contact Washington and the Sixth Fleet as soon as he could. The Saratoga, USS Saratoga, launched 2 helicopters to go save them. Lyndon Johnson himself sent them back. He says, we're not going to embarrass our ally by making a deal of this, right? Supposedly it was a case of mistaken identity. You can look up 1967 USS Liberty attack. Israel attacked us for over 45 minutes. They bombed us with napalm. They shot out the antennas. They don't want anyone to talk about it. And just previous to that, Israeli Air Force had come by and waved to them. They knew they were Americans. And they came out there, and there's radio chatter that this is an American ship. We're firing on an American ship. Follow your orders. Fire on the American ship. So they fired on the American ship with napalm. They were going to send in an attack helicopter crew. They could not sink the USS Liberty. It was an act of God it could not sink because Phil Turney said he saw holes in the boat. He could see water, and the ship still would not sink. Now, listen to Phil Turney's story. I've got the link in the profile there, in the bottom near the chat. Please watch Phil Turney. He is telling you the truth. Israel was staging an attack on the United States, and if they would have sunk the Liberty, they would have blamed it on the Russians, they would have blamed it on the Arabs, and it would have started World War III. Lyndon Johnson wanted to start World War III. And that was the purpose of putting Israel there in the first place. How many sailors died on the USS Liberty? 34, 110 wounded. Why didn't the Sixth Fleet get alerted to help them? Lyndon Johnson ignored the distress calls. It was said that this was just an accident, but not much later, the ship supposedly fired on and destroyed in the Gulf of Tonkin, which was a couple years later, which precipitated the U.S. involvement in Vietnam. Sound familiar? Their tricks never fail. They never get new tricks. When the Germans acted like Polish people, they attacked a German city, a German radio station, and they were dressed as Polish troops. That was all cause for the Germans to invade Poland. It was totally fake and bogus, but they have been doing the same thing over and over and over again throughout history. The USS Maine, look that one up. That's a false flag. A false flag is where their own country destroys their people and pretends like it's another country so the people get outraged and will allow the politicians and the leaders to go to war, because otherwise they would protest. Even though the leaders did allow the army to go to war with Vietnam, it wasn't called a war, but they allowed them to because of the Gulf of Tonkin. But then people started protesting like crazy, and eventually we did get out, but not until we diminished a whole bunch of men at the prime of their lives with PSTD and murder, and not to mention the Vietnamese people that were murdered. That none of that had to happen. Kennedy wasn't going to let that happen, but then Kennedy was shot. And all of this ties back to Israel. I'm not sure if Johnson was Jewish, but he sure loved Israel. Now, I know in the Bible it says those who bless Israel will be blessed, or those who bless Abraham will be blessed. And also in the Bible it says that John the Baptist, when he was talking to the Pharisees and Sadducees that came to the Jordan, he says, well, who warned you, vipers, you den of vipers, that the time is coming, the end is near? And they said, why do you talk to us like that? We are sons of Abraham, just like you are. And John said, Abba can raise up rocks from this river, or he can even raise up rocks to be sons of Abraham. So what you need to do is repent, right? Because anyone who follows Abba's rules is Israelite, right? So there's always a remnant of people who still follow Abba's ways. But those people weren't, and John was calling them out on it. You may think you are blood sons of Abraham, but you are not spiritual sons of Abraham. I'm not going to get into replacement theology and all that. I'm just going to tell you that Israel is bad, and we need to stop supporting them. We don't need to hurt them or kill them. We just need to stop sending them money. We need to stop supporting people who murder people. Other thing that Israelis do to get land from their neighbors, from their Arab neighbors, is they'll kill their dogs or they'll kill their cattle, and they'll basically poison their water. And then the Arab or whoever will leave the land, or the Christian will leave the land because they're getting harassed. I mean, the same tactics happen with the NDA milk company that lives near my brother-in-law. They do the same thing. They want the land, they want the alfalfa for their cows that they keep in these little tiny pens their entire life for milking. And it's the conditions are horrible. Yet they will kill neighbors' dogs, and they will poison their water supply and do things to get them to leave so they can buy their property for cheap. And that's what Israel's been doing since 1948. Now, if you are supposedly following the Creator will make a way for you. If He wants you to be there, He will make it easy for you, right? He will make the people agree. They'll give you their land. They'll say, we want Israel to be blessed. We want this land to be blessed again, right? But He's not going to bless it for child sex addicts and drug dealers and murderers and satanic rights people, cannibals. He's not going to make it good for them. Are you kidding me? And that's what they are. I mean, the normal people of Israel are like the people of the United States, right? They get along, they just go to their jobs, just do their jobs. But if Israel were really Israel, why is there a gay pride parade in Tel Aviv every year? I mean, that's not Abba. That's not the Creator. You love the sinner, you don't love the sin, and you definitely don't glorify the sin. I mean, that's like Sodom and Gomorrah stuff. Why do so many evangelical preachers say, we've got to support Israel, we've got to support Israel, when all the money that goes to Israel from them gets wasted? It doesn't get used for evangelicalism or for evangelism. It doesn't get used to convert people to Christianity. There are laws against trying to convert Jews to being Christian. Now, they may say that Israel has a constitution where it's free and open to every religion, and we're not gonna discriminate against you because of your religion. But what they do is they have statutes on the books that make it almost impossible, even criminal, to try to talk to someone from Israel and try to tell them about Yeshua, their Savior, their Messianic Savior, and you can't even talk to them about it. And they don't give money to Christians. They definitely don't give money to Arab Christians, and you don't help people who are their so-called enemies. So they want people who are Jews, or at least atheists who call themselves Jews. Israel is not the chosen land right now. Right now, Israel is a land in turmoil that is trying to control the entire planet. And I thought this was crazy. Considering Satan wants to sit on the throne of Jerusalem, it's only inevitable, right? If it's not happening exactly now, it's going to happen in the future. Abba did not send people home. There's been no aliyah. There's been no call to come back to Israel, to the remnant of His people. His people are not being called. So who is that is being called? Well, there may be some people there that do believe in Yahweh and in His Son Yeshua. And that's great. But your government is not. And your government is fighting against that. They hate Yeshua. But why are so many pastors supporting Israel? Now, those are the same pastors that signed a document that said that if Obama were to do Jade Helm and start rounding up Christians, that they would tell the parishioners or the people of their flocks, whatever, their congregation, not to fight, to follow the government. It'll all be over. It'll all be peaceful. And they just want to put you away for a little while, right? They're going to round them up and kill them, right? Now, is Jade Helm going on right now? Is like that was the drill during Obama's time. Is Jade Helm going to be going on under Trump? He seems to love Israel a lot. And I thought Trump was doing a lot of great things, but then when he decided to ignore Epstein and ignore the stuff that he promised about bringing people to justice, I'm starting to have my doubts. He's doing a lot of great things for the economy. He's doing a lot of common sense things, but is he just another mystery babysitter? Like, he's the good guy and Biden's the bad guy, and you're in the interrogation room and you want to talk to this Trump guy because he's really nice, and this Biden guy's an asshole. So I want to tell him everything because he's cool. But two sides, the same coin. I'm hoping that's not what's happening, but it appears that it is, and it appears we're never going to get out of this unless people know the truth about Israel. Look up Jade Helm and see what it was about. It's crazy. I listened to a testimony of one of the guys who was part of the exercise Jade Helm. They were military people who were parachuted into different places, Texas, because that's one of the considered enemy states, and they were trying to infiltrate like bars and places and talk to people and see what people were going to do to try to do a rebellion, right? And they were infiltrating all these things, probably creating groups that were inciting rebellion just to see who would join. Jade Helm's crazy. It was a crazy thing to do, and is it still going on now? I don't know. All right. Now you might say, well, can Messianics still attend synagogue? Well, not a Jewish synagogue. Here's another thing that Israel, or that the Jews did. They have a prayer called the Birkat Hamamim, which basically curses the Nazarene. So anyone who's a Messianic believer or a believer in Yeshua, when they go into a synagogue, the first thing they have to repeat is a prayer that curses him. Why would you want to go into synagogue? And that has caused another rift between the brethren, the people who believe in the old book, and the people who understand the old book, the ones who, the New Testament kind of explains the old book in detail, and the ones over here are not using the Talmud. The ones over here have been using the Talmud for thousands of years, and it's a book that's evil. So guess what? We're going to be mad because you didn't accept or help us against the Romans, so we're going to create a curse for you in every synagogue on the planet. So if you attend a Jewish synagogue to try to learn about Judaism, you're cursing your Savior when you go in there. There's no point going in there unless it's a Messianic congregation and they don't do the Birkat Hamamim when they start. Why would we support someone who wants us dead? Why would we work for somebody who would in an instant kill us to support their own goals? And go, you're dying for the cause. No, you're dying for uselessness. You shouldn't have been following them in the first place. The CIA and the Mossad, why would you ever want to work for those organizations? Because if someone decides Wilson's no good anymore, or Smith or Smithers or Jensen's not good anymore, let's just send them into a situation and have them die. And then they say, well, they died on a training exercise, or they died serving their country. Yeah, right. They died because they weren't convenient anymore, or maybe they were a free thinker asking questions. Never work for a government agency. That's crazy. Zionists are not on the side of Israel. They're on the side of Satan. The Israel that exists now is not an Israel that was called by God. It was called by the fallen angel, his name's Satan, who likes to go by Lucifer, which is incorrect. But he likes the name anyway, so he kept it. He wants to pretend like he is the Son of God. He wants to actually be God. He wants to be Yahweh, which I don't know how that works. I don't know how he thinks that. It doesn't matter. What matters is his followers will kill, murder, maim, sacrifice, rape. They'll do everything they can to follow their master. Now, whether their master's real or not, you may not believe it. They believe it. And they have these genealogies and these bloodlines that they've carried down for centuries upon centuries. They know their history. You don't. They're organized. We're not. And Israel is the nexus of where all this is going to end up, where it began and where it's going to end up. And the people that are in Israel now, albeit they might be just people going to work like people in every other country, they're going to work, doing their jobs, but the government and people in Israel are perpetuating evil. And the purpose of Israel from 1948 was to create a state that would cause World War III. When you're blessing the sons of Abraham, then there's Esau, who was Israel's brother, Yaakov's brother. He became what we know as Jordan, at least one of the tribes. Abraham's last wife, I can't remember her name, but Ishmael was another one. Ishmael was Abraham's firstborn son. So all those people are blessed. If you bless them, you're blessing Abba. You're basically, through Abraham, the world is blessed. And if you bless Abraham, you're blessing the world. Well, after thousands of years, all these families have intermingled, and I could be an Ishmaelite, I could be an Israelite, I could be, I'm white, so I'm probably one of the three tribes of Israel. If you think I'm creating this because I hate Jews, I may be a Jew. I may be one of these people that are of the bloodlines. I may be, maybe not. Maybe I'm just a son of Japheth. Who knows? But with the mixture of the families on the planet, just about everybody's related to Abraham. So saying that you're anti-Semitic is a front to try to get people to stop you from looking up answers. Now, you're not hating a people group. You're hating a type of person. A type of person that murders, a type of person that rapes, a type of person that molests little kids, a type of person that cannibalizes other humans. That's not the type of person you want to bless. Even if you're of the tribes, of the leadership of those tribes, you still have a decision. You can choose not to follow it. Kennedy was one of those families. Kennedys were family of all the elites. The Trumps were the families of all the elites. You can choose not to be bad. You can choose to follow your Creator Yahweh. You can choose to follow Yeshua. Even if you have Rh negative blood, even if your family in the past has done satanic rituals and you were a kid, you can leave that. It's going to be painful because they're going to kill you. But the reward is so much better for following the right path than not. But what we need to do is to stop patronizing Israel as it stands now. The government of Israel, Mossad, CIA, a lot of factions of the U.S. government, the European governments, and maybe they've even infiltrated the Russian governments. I know that Russia is made up of the tribe of Dan, so they're also Israelites. So when they say that Gog and Magog are going to destroy Israel and 2/3 of the population can be wiped out, that could be anybody. It could be the Ukrainians or the Khazars who were just north of Israel as well. God doesn't hate Russia. And if you listen to Joshua 5, verse 13, Joshua sees a man standing on the edge of the wilderness or whatever, where they're near the Jordan, getting ready to go attack Jericho. And he goes, "Hail, are you for us, against us?" And the person says, "I am the captain of the angels of the Lord of hosts." And then Joshua fell to his feet and he gave a message from Abba. The thing is that he didn't answer saying he's for Israel or he's for Jericho or he's for the Anakites or he's for every human being. He created us all. What he wants is us to live in peace. So if you have Yeshua in your heart, you are a son of Abraham, whether you're blood related or not. They will look upon the one they have pierced and they will weep, because they'll know what they've done and they will repent and turn back. When that's going to happen, I don't know. Who it's going to happen to, I don't know. But we have got to stop openly supporting Israel until there's a change of government, until Mossad is dismantled, until CIA is dismantled. We've got to stop. And I felt I had to say this because it's something that's been on my heart for a while now. I'm going to probably be labeled anti-Semitic, but I'm not. And I'm probably going to get a bunch of Jew haters going to get on my channel and go, "Yeah, way to go, man." I don't propose to hate people just for the color of their skin or just because of their nationality or just because of their ethnic origin or their accent. I don't hate people. What I do hate is evil. And I'm going to fight against it. And however that ends up happening, I don't know. But I'm going to stop supporting Israel. It's not right. And if Israel were really Israel, they wouldn't have a satanic symbol on their flag. They would have a 6-point star. By the way, the cup is the male, and the bottom cup is the female, the chalice, the one that holds the bloodline. They put the two together, you get sacred feminine, sacred masculine. Pagan. It is a pagan symbol, and it is the symbol of Solomon. It is not the symbol of David. David would never have that symbol. David, if he created a flag, would have had the menorah. The menorah would be the symbol of the sevenfold Spirit of God, the sevenfold Spirit of Yahweh.